Hello everyone, and welcome to Galaxy 89 Cars. Today, thanks to Uber GT, I'm taking you on an in-depth exterior and interior tour and exhaust sound video of this 2021 BMW M3 competition. This car, in addition to other high specification models, is available with Uber GT at the time of publishing, and all of their contact details can be found in the description of the video. Now in its 6th generation and 3rd decade, the BMW M3 remains at the heart of the performance sedan category. This latest iteration of M3 comes in two configurations, the standard M3 and this M3 competition. This M3 competition represents a higher performance and higher spec version of the M3. However, this latest edition comes with radical exterior changes that have divided opinion. As usual, I'll provide comparisons between this and the outgoing M3 to provide context. The new G80 M3 competition comes in at 4,794mm long, 123mm longer than the previous M3 comp package, 1,903mm wide, 134mm narrower, 1,433mm high, 2mm taller, with an unladen weight of 1,730kg, 200kg heavier. Next, we can focus on the car's powertrain. Firstly, we need to unlatch the bonnet. This can be done in typical BMW fashion by pulling the lever to the right of the driver's side twice. Then moving around to the front, we can lift the bonnet straight up, as the double pull completely releases it, and self-support it on two struts. This new M3 is powered by a front mid-mounted twin-turbo inline 6-cylinder engine that produces 503 brake horsepower and 650 Nm of torque, all sent to the rear wheels, 30 brake horsepower and 100 Nm more than the standard M3. This output produces a 0 to 60 mph or 100 km/h time of 3.9 seconds, and a top speed limited to 155 mph, 0.3 seconds faster to 62, and the same top speed as the standard M3. Before closing the bonnet, we can also note the struts in the engine bay that enhances the car's rigidity and therefore control. Now moving away from the powertrain and down to the corners, we find the optional 19-inch front and 20-inch rear forged alloy wheels. In from these, we find the ventilated M compound brakes with an energy regen function. Carbon ceramics are also available. The car's stability is provided by adaptive M suspension, which is comprised of double joint spring struts at the front and a 5-link struts at the rear, which is also joined by an active M differential. Now we've completed the model overview, we can start the exterior tour from front to back. At the bottom, we can start with the side intakes. These are split into two. The inside channel feeds cool air into the brakes, and the outside opening feeds cool air to the radiators. Continuing laterally, the side air channels that help direct air away from the disruptive front wheels have been extended outside of this complex to give a far wider aesthetic. The large vent that was at the bottom in the previous car has been merged into the now much larger kidney grills that have become quite a talking point. The wide spacing between the grills provide more airflow to the engine bay. Moving up, the light complexes have been slimmed, but are still comprised of two main beams, complemented by angular LED daytime running lights. In this model, the blue laser light pack has been selected that enhances the illumination distance of the lights. Moving up, we find the bonnet's customary hump has been moved forward and fronted by two angular nostrils. Behind this, there is now a more slanted windscreen with two wipers. Above the windscreen, we come to the carbon roof that comes as standard and helps to lower the centre of gravity. Moving to the lateral aspect, we find more pinched side skirts than in the previous model. Above and in front of these, the front arch vents are more angular and the model insignia has now been integrated. Looking up, we find the wing mirror's pointed top rim now points forward more, and the indicator is now found at the top. The proximity light is still present towards the outside edge of the glass. Moving down and back, the handles are slightly more rounded in their design and come with keyless entry indicators. Behind these, we come to the fuel tank flap that can be opened with a press and closed in the same way. The new M3 comes with a slightly smaller fuel tank of 59 litres and produces a combined MPG of 28.8. Now moving to the rear, after a look at the slightly more angular rear window, we find a larger rear spoiler that helps to increase the car's downforce over the previous model. Moving over the rear, we find new M3 competition insignia, but the reversing camera is in the same location. The rear light complexes on either side have been cut down substantially, and now represent a far more angular aesthetic with a white top. The rear bumper below extends out further than before, and the reflectors have been moved to the sides. The diffuser at the bottom is also larger, but the quad exhausts remain and are valve controlled. We will hear these later in the video. And now we've finished the exterior tour, we can move inside. This M3 competition comes with a fob key only, with the M colours on the side and buttons to unlock, lock, a configurable button and the boot. Now moving inside, the handles and doors pull out easily, and we find an updated interior that we will focus on in more detail as we progress throughout the video. Starting the interior in-depth tour with the doors, the style line in the previous car has been replaced by a more simple leather upholstered panel at the top, but the top speaker remains. Below, dual stitch takes us to the door handle with lock controls and seat memory. Underneath, a new aluminium strip runs along the side of the arm. Moving over, we find the electric window and mirror controls. Then moving back around, we find an integrated LED strip for the ambient lighting system, and the main speaker from the standard Harman Kardon system. The main door storage below is broken into two compartments, with the interior boot control at the front. The new M3 Competition has a ground clearance of 120mm. As we begin to move inside, we come to a new branded metal sill plaque, an access hatch, exterior light controls, and an ambient lighting strip under the first manually adjustable air vent. Let's now hear the car in both normal and Sport Plus modes, and then view the lights. Moving back inside, we can look at the wheel. The wheel is upholstered in leather, and now comes with thicker sections to the side and bottom that come with carbon. To the left, we find controls for the cruise control system, and to the right, volume for the infotainment system and calls. There's a steering wheel heating button below, part of the comfort pack. Before looking at the display ahead, we can view the long carbon gear shifters for the car's 8-speed DCT gearbox. That is the only option for this model, whereas the standard M3 comes with a 6-speed manual. The analog dials have been replaced here with a 12.3-inch fully digital display that starts from left to right, with info for fuel level, speedo, car status, driving modes, rev gauge and engine temp with range, time, mileage and outside temp along the bottom. Using the red M1 paddle, we can alter the driving mode setup, while the M2 stick manages the safety systems. Both of these paddles can be configured in the main menu. When selecting the different driving modes, the screen also changes. The dash above has also been changed, and now offers a far more simple and flat aesthetic, with only the HUD projector, speaker and vents. Moving down in the centre of this, we come to the new 10.25-inch infotainment display. From the configurable home screen, we can swipe to setup, engine for temperature and turbo pressure, and tyre temps and pressure. In setup, we can manually configure the car's engine, chassis, steering, brake and traction control setup. Swiping one more time and we come to a simple trip and sat-nav data across two displays. Before going into the different menus, we can have a look at the different standard driving mode displays. Now moving from top to bottom along the left side, we start with media for the DAB digital radio, Spotify, Bluetooth, USB and aux connections. Communication comes next for the contacts list, telephony, messages and to access BMW assistance. The sat-nav comes after, that features a manually adjustable map and the usual destination input and selection options. Car is next. Here we can first access journey data, which is essentially a trip. Sport displays features turbo pressure, oil temperature, engine output in Newton meters and kilowatts, and a central G meter. Energy flow shows data focused on economical driving, such as coasting, start-stop and battery recuperation. Moving out of this menu and into the M menu, we find options to configure the M1 and M2 controls we saw earlier. The heads-up display and instrument cluster can also be configured here. The final menu is the M Drift Analyzer that logs data while drifting and alters traction control settings. Moving away from this and into vehicle status, we can access the tyre pressure monitor, engine oil level, system messages and requirements. In settings, we find the usual ability to alter time and date data, access and create a user profile, and adjust the exterior lights, but we can also alter the brightness and colour of the interior ambient lighting that we can also see around the doors and dash. Moving down from the screen, we first come to buttons for the hazard lights and intelligent safety, that shows when all safety systems are operational. The two main manually adjustable air vents are below these, with the ventilation and climate controls underneath. Continuing down, we come to physical controls for the media system, on-off and track radio selection. These were above the aircon controls in the previous model. Below these, we come to a larger carbon cover than what was in the previous model. Underneath, there is a 12-volt socket and USB input on top of the two cup holders, and wireless charging station further in. The menu rotary has been brought forward and integrated into the control array in this model. At the top, we find infotainment direct access controls in front and behind of the rotary, with M3 competition text behind. To the right of this is the drive selector for the 8-speed DCT that comes with a sequential shifting ability when pushed to the right. To its right, there are buttons for traction control, parking sensors, start-stop, engine on-off, M mode, setup, exhaust valves, and auto and park hold to the rear. As the manual handbrake has been removed, there is now a much larger armrest behind the controls. It can be opened by pressing the small button at the front and lifted up to reveal a well-sized illuminated storage compartment with further device inputs. On either side of the central column, we find the standard electrically adjustable seats hold a similar style to those in the previous model. Carbon-backed high-performance seats can also be spec'd. The M3 badge in the headrest illuminates, and all movement controls can be found to the outside edge. However, to extend the seat, the lower portion needs to be manually pulled out. Now we've looked at the majority of features in the front, we can move to the rear. Unsurprisingly, the rear door interiors come with the same stitch and trim as those in the front. We also find a window control, ambient lighting strip, speaker and large storage area at the bottom. Before looking at the rear's features in detail, we can take a POV look around, starting with the rear of the performance seats that don't come with storage nets or sleeves. In the centre, two air vents project into the rear with air temp controls and USB inputs below. Rear seating comes in the form of a bench that now offers slightly more contoured side seats with smaller headrests. The central occasional seat can be pulled down to allow for long items to be transported in the boot. Looking up, we come to the final feature here, the LED lighting array and controls. Moving outside, we can take a look at the boot, that can be opened by utilising the button on the key, the boot lid, or that inside. I believe this latest M3 competition has the same boot capacity as its predecessor, at 480 litres. Taking a look inside, we find smaller, netted compartments on either side, and a floor that can be lifted up to reveal a spare wheel and tools. There is a warning triangle fitted to the boot lid. The button here can be used to close the boot lid, thanks to the inclusion of the comfort pack. Now moving back inside briefly, we can view the large, leather-upholstered sun visors with their illuminated vanity mirrors. Centrally, we come to the SOS button and feathered lighting either side that runs down to the lighting controls. Below, there is an auto-dimming rearview mirror that offers good visibility. So that concludes my in-depth exterior and interior tour and exhaust sound video of this 2021 BMW M3 competition that's for sale at the time of publishing with Uber GT. All of their contact details are in the description of the video. Please subscribe for the latest content, and until next time, thanks for watching.